Hello everyone, it's me, Chillwave Kittens, the second most trusted name in music, and today we're going to be doing our very first episode of Agree or Disagree, a show where I take opinions and hot takes surveyed by my followers on Instagram, and I agree or disagree with them, and today's first episode is about Beach House. The way they're releasing their upcoming album is ridiculous. I disagree. I don't think it's ridiculous. I was a little bit on the fence at first, but I've warmed up to it over time because I'm listening to these songs over and over and they're not getting old yet. I'm excited to have a handful of new Beach House songs every month until the album comes out. Also, it's a double album. I think it would be a little hard to digest that many new Beach House songs at one time. So I kind of like what they're doing with it. Not just that, this is their 8th studio album, which means they've rolled out 7 already. They might be getting a little bit bored of it, and this might be a little bit more fun for them. Zebra is one of the best dream pop songs to ever exist. I'm going to disagree. I am not that big of a fan of this song. I know that the Beach House heads will be very up in arms about that. It's probably one of the hottest Beach House takes that I have, but I've never been really that big of a fan of this song. I think it's a pretty weak album opener for such a strong album. It just does not do it for me. The whole vibe of the song just sort of stays the same the whole time. It doesn't escalate very well, and it just sort of never pops off. I'm very bored every time I listen to that song. Alien should have been on 7, need more Beach House shoegaze. I agree. I do think that Alien should have been on 7. I think that Alien could be perfectly placed right after Black Car and replace Lose Your Smile. Lose Your Smile is a very weak song on that album. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't fit the vibe of the album. It's very radio friendly. One of my least favorite Beach House songs. 7 would be a much stronger album with Alien on it. Beach House flourishes in the shoegaze department, and we could use more Beach House shoegaze. 7 is their best album. I disagree. I've gone through moments where I thought that 7 was their best album, but I think I was in a little bit of a honeymoon phase for about a year after it was released. Plus, I saw them a couple times during that album cycle, so it just made me like it more and more. But listening to it now, there are a couple weak moments near the end. As stated earlier, I don't like Lose Your Smile. Woo and Girl of the Year are both very good, but they don't fit the vibe of the album at all. I think the first half of the album is perfect. It's immaculate. You can't touch it. But it sort of falls off near the end, and Last Ride, although being a good closer, it's not very epic and a little bit too long. Once Twice Melody is already leagues better than the rest of their discography. You know what? I am actually going to agree, which is going to sound crazy because we're comparing 4 songs to 7 albums plus a B-sides album worth of material. Not just that, great material. Beach House has remained consistent their entire career, but somehow these 4 songs just seem to raise the bar even higher. Every time that Beach House puts something out, the expectations are through the roof, and that does not seem to bother them at all. I'm really looking forward to hearing what the rest of the album sounds like. Teen Dream isn't their best album. I completely agree. Teen Dream is not their best album. It's a good album, but they got a lot better after that, especially with Bloom. Bloom is the superior album to Teen Dream. I feel like Zebra is a weak opener. I prefer the B-sides version of Used to Be to the album version. Better Times and Real Love, both being good songs, they're never in my rotation, and usually when I'm listening to Teen Dream, I tend to skip them. They better completely change their concert experience because I am over it. I've seen them 4 times. I disagree. I've seen them 7 times and I've been blown away every time. They change their set list almost every single night. The atmosphere is always amazing. Beach House is the only band I've ever seen where I went to the show and I was not annoyed by the people around me. I think that the vibe that they give off when they're playing music live is extremely euphoric. Everyone's very happy. I love the visuals. I love the punchiness of the live drums. I think that their live show is perfectly fine the way it is. I do see them changing it a little bit though. I'm hoping that they add some string arrangements to accompany the new songs on the Once Twice Melody tour. Their old stuff is better. I completely disagree. I like every Beach House album, but you really can't deny that they got better over time. From Self-Titled to Devotion to Teen Dream to Bloom to Depression Cherry to Thank Your Lucky Stars to Seven. All of those albums, with the exception of maybe one or two, get better than the last. Now, their old stuff is great. I love it, but they got better. You're not going to sit here and tell me that Devotion or the Self-Titled album is better than Bloom or Seven, or even Thank Your Lucky Stars. That's just ridiculous, especially with the shit that they just put out. Have you listened to Once Twice Melody? Those 4 songs murder their best songs that they already have. For a band that's about to put out their 8th album, think about it. They've stayed consistent the entire time. How many bands have put out 7 or 8 albums and gotten better with most of the releases, or stayed as good as they used to be, if not better? Yeah, I can't do this one. This take is bad. Scally is underrated and underrepresented. Praise the Lord above. I could not agree with this more. I think Alex Scally is an amazing guitar player. He's an amazing writer, and I think he's very underrated in the guitar world. I think guitar-based music is based on how much you can shred, all of that dumb shit that you really shouldn't care too much about. What really matters is what you are saying through the music. His approach to guitar playing and songwriting is just so heavenly. It's amazing. It's beautiful. It's so hard to not just be so engaged every time that he picks up a guitar. He's one of my favorite guitar players of all time. I definitely think he deserves some more respect. When you're listening to a Beach House song and that tremolo picking comes through, that's him. He's laying it on the table. That's who he is, and I love every second of it. Dark Spring is one of their best album openers. I completely agree. I think Dark Spring is probably their second best album opener. It's a great way to kick off Seven. Usually Beach House album openers are slow, but this one just catapults you right into the album, and there's no looking back. I love the energy, I love the speed, I love the drum track, I love everything about this song. It's probably one of my favorite Beach House songs in general. I love the visual representations, I love what it makes me think about, I love the way it makes me feel, I love the way it transitions into Pay No Mind. I can't say enough good things about Dark Spring. Sparks over Space Song. I completely agree. I could not agree more with this. Sparks is a really underrated Beach House song. And we'll get into my thoughts about Space Song a little bit later in the video, but let's talk about Sparks right now. We've been talking about Beach House making shoegaze music and how awesome it would be if there was more of it. And Sparks is a great representation of it. I love the haziness. I love the fuzzy vocals. I love the guitar creeping in and out. I love the whole vibe of this song. I remember when Sparks came out and it was the first track released to preview Depression Cherry, and I was so excited for that album just because of this song. If the rest of Depression Cherry sounded like Sparks, it could possibly be their best album. Once Twice Melody will end up being the greatest album of their discography. It's very early to say something like this, but I'm gonna go ahead and agree with you. And if I'm wrong and the album falls off a cliff and it's not good, you can come back and tell me how wrong I was, but I've got a good feeling about it. I love the new direction. I love how they're elevating their sound. I love that they're doing something different. It sounds like Beach House XL, a paid subscription service edition of Beach House. You've gotten great Beach House songs, but now you're getting a more premier version of Beach House. You're getting Beach House in full Super Saiyan mode. You're getting them at the top of their game, and I think they're at the top of their game right now, and that's saying a lot for a band that's been killing it for the better part of the last 20 years. Space Song is as good as people say. Anyone who disagrees just wants attention. I disagree. I don't think Space Song is as good as everybody thinks it is. I can understand why it's one of their most popular songs, even before it blew up on TikTok. If I were to take every single Beach House cliche and put it into one song, it would sound like Space Song. I used to really like Space Song, but I overplayed it myself, and to be honest, it hasn't aged well for me. One time I heard it in a Walmart, and ever since then, I've never wanted to listen to it again. The environment that you're in is very important for listening to music. If you're listening to music in a bad situation, it might ruin it for you for life. Put yourself in a Walmart and imagine Space Song playing over their shitty fucking speakers. Yeah. Not too fun, is it? You're right, though. I do like attention. The transition from Dark Spring to Pay No Mind is goated. It's one of the best music transitions, period. I fully agree. I think that transition is seamless. It's perfect. One of my favorite music transitions ever. I think if it weren't for that transition, I don't think I would like Pay No Mind very much. It's not very often that I listen to Pay No Mind without listening to Dark Spring first. Goated. It's goated. I don't agree with calling everything goated. I think people throw around the term goated way too often, but I will say the transition from Dark Spring to Pay No Mind is goated. The song Rough Song is so underrated. I agree. I think Rough Song is very underrated. I think it's probably a top 20 beach house song. I actually got a lot of responses talking about how Rough Song was underrated, so I knew I had to include it in this video. The synth chords are very delicate. The vocals are breezy. Overall, it just makes me feel like I'm laying on a bed of clouds, which obviously we're talking about beach house. Most of their songs make you feel like you're laying on a bed of clouds. But yeah, I do agree. I think Rough Song is incredible. I think it gets overlooked by a lot of people, especially in the beach house fan base. Definitely one of the best songs on Thank Your Lucky Stars overall. Probably some of my favorite beach house lyrics in general. Rough Song also includes some of my favorite beach house lyrics ever. The new music is not comparable to the dream pop that I love the band for. I disagree. The music they're putting out now is a lot better. I also think that labeling things and sticking to things and being like it's not as dream pop as it used to be is a little bit ridiculous. Best live band I've ever seen. I agree. They're the best live band I've ever seen as well. They always sound on point. They rarely fuck up, and if they do, no one notices. I feel like when you go to see Beach House, you're not watching a band play music. You are watching a band speak to you. You are watching a band entertain you. You are in for a show if you go to see Beach House. I've seen Beach House at festivals, I've seen Beach House with small audiences, and every time it's a one-of-a-kind experience that I hope to never forget. This might sound a little bit cliche, but I can honestly tell you, anytime I've gone to see Beach House, I've felt a world amount of better afterwards. Whether I'm dealing with anxiety or depression or something's going on in my life, I'm often much more hopeful about whatever's going on after a Beach House show. Overrated. Disagree. Depression Cherry is good, but nowhere near as good as Teen Dream, Bloom, or Seven, in my opinion. I agree. I think Depression Cherry is good, but I'm going to call it at that. That's the highest I'm going to go for Depression Cherry, is to call it good. Although it does have a few of my favorite Beach House songs like Levitation and Sparks, I think the weaker moments on the album completely outweigh the good ones. A 1037, Wildflower, Bluebird, and I'm sorry, but Days of Candy is not that great, especially as an album closer. I was very disappointed with Depression Cherry overall. Obviously, Seven, Teen Dream, and Bloom are superior to Depression Cherry. They should add their drummer as a third member. I disagree. I do love their drummer. I think he's very efficient. He does a good job, and he's been with them for quite a while now, and I'd like him to stay being their drummer. But I think the dynamic between Alex and Victoria is just too important when it comes to their music. Them two having the decision making over everything is what makes their music sound the way it does, and I think adding somebody else would completely fuck it up. Beach House is a duo, they're known as a duo, and they will always be a duo until we are all dead. If your favorite album is Depression Cherry, you're toxic as fuck. Yeah, I totally agree. Everyone I know whose favorite album is Depression Cherry is fucking wild. When people tell me their favorite album is Depression Cherry, I have a hard time believing it. But then I start to get to know them and I see their personality traits and it starts to all make sense. I think people who love Depression Cherry are obsessed with the idea of not being in control of over their emotions, and they use it as a personality trait, and they tend to like that. They don't have a bad album. I agree. Although I've been disappointed by an album or two, I would never say that they're bad. I don't think Depression Cherry is by any means bad. It can be a little bit boring, but I would never say it's bad. Yeah, I don't think they have a bad album. I can agree with that. Not a lot of bands don't have a bad album. Thank Your Lucky Stars is one of Beach House's top 3 records in my opinion. I fully agree with this statement. I think Thank Your Lucky Stars is top 3, but that opinion might have a shelf life because Once Twice Melody is out next year, but it's not yet. So currently, Thank Your Lucky Stars is in the top 3. It goes Bloom, it goes Seven, and then it goes Thank Your Lucky Stars. Thank Your Lucky Stars, for some reason, is super underrated. We talked about it earlier. Probably because of the timing of release. It was released so soon after Depression Cherry. I think if Thank Your Lucky Stars came out first and Depression Cherry came out second, things might be a little bit different, but however, that's not the case. I tend to vibe really well with people who have this opinion, who love Thank Your Lucky Stars. Thank Your Lucky Stars is a very special album. All Your Yas, Elegy to the Void, The Traveler, Somewhere Tonight, Rough Song. Even the songs that I don't think are great but are still good are still very, very good. Majorette, She's So Lovely, One Thing. I think Thank Your Lucky Stars is a great album for people who miss the days of the self-titled era. Making same song for over a decade. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and disagree with this immediately. I saw a few of these and I was really excited to touch on one of them. Saying that a band makes the same song over and over again is kind of stupid and redundant. Bands have a sound. And bands hone in on that sound and they expand on it and they get better over time. Do Beach House have themes to their music? Absolutely, they have themes to their music, but the same way other bands do. Metal bands, rock bands, shoegaze bands, indie pop, synth pop. People keep themes consistent throughout their career when they know what they are doing. Saying that they've been making the same song over and over again is a little bit ridiculous. You apparently haven't listened to their music at all, because if you had, you wouldn't have this opinion. I think you're just trying to be edgy, and that's fine because you made it in the video. If you liked this video or you hated this video, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Let me know your opinions on Beach House. Let me know your opinions on my opinions, what you agree with, what you disagree with, and be sure to like and subscribe. And if you'd like to participate in the next episode of Agree or Disagree, go ahead and follow me on Instagram. You can find a link to that below.